version of the Marauders in podcast form with Emma. This is part 2 of the prank. Yeah, so we just let's answer some more questions because we need a little break.
Oh, yeah.
Just absolutely threw my mic around.
Nice.
I literally was just like, oh, we need to talk about it. Oh yeah. First, before we get into the questions, I would like to address the fact that Emma's entire extended family loves this podcast, and it's so funny to me, and it's low-key terrifying also, because the first thing was like Emma's dad, and I was like, that's a little weird. Because like my mom listens to the podcast, but it's more in like the, oh, I'm just listening because like my daughter does this and like I should probably be monitoring it type of thing. Your dad listens to it for fun. Like
My family is just like, they all like Harry Potter, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. It's wacky to me, but like now like her uncles and cousins are like texting her and being like, I loved this episode, and I'm like, that's just wacky to me. And I don't know, it shouldn't be scary, but it's legitimately terrifying to me that like, I don't know, they just
because some of them you haven't even met.
I know! Most of them, I don't think I've met any of them.
Yeah.
Maybe. And it's just like, it's kind of wacky. But yeah, so that's, just shout out to Emma's family.
Woo.
Honestly. Because they are iconic, but they do scare me. So that's
Thanks,
good.
guys.
Oh, I thought somebody asked what my favorite Marauder ship was, and then in parentheses, besides Snilly. And I was like, oh, that's not it, bestie. But it was what was your least favorite Marauder ship besides Snilly. I don't think I have one besides Snilly. Oh, yes, I do.
Oh, I know what you're thinking.
No, you don't. It's a new one. Snames? Or Jnape? I don't know what it is.
Snape.
I don't like it. It's 0 out of 10. I found out that some people ship it and it's like an enemies to lovers thing, and I'm like, no, it's not.
Or like
no, it's
just
not.
enemies.
Yes, yep, that's it. Okay, but second least favorite is probably Snedeker.
Yeah. Oh man. I can't tell if that's a joke. I can't tell.
I don't know.
Because I've seen like TikToks.
I know. I've seen funny TikToks about it, and I've seen not funny TikToks about it, and I'm like, oh no. Oh my goodness. So yeah, is that your least favorite? Do you have another one?
I'll go with that.
You'll go with Snedeker.
Jnape.
Jnape. Oh goodness.
Such a funny name.
It's so bad. Okay, Matt, who was on the podcast a couple weeks ago, asked, would you eat plain mayonnaise for $2? He didn't specify how much. Yeah, I was wondering that as well. Because, like, if it's, like, a spoonful...
Yeah, I would do it.
Actually, I was gonna say, yeah, I would do it, but I'm like, ooh, the texture of mayonnaise. I'm like, $2 is not a lot. If it was $200, I think I could eat a good amount of mayonnaise. But that jiggly texture with the not sweet flavor, I don't know. It's a lot.
I could do like a spoonful for $2. Like a bowl would be like at least like 20.
Yeah, at least. Oh my goodness. Thanks for that question.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt.
I'll bring you some mayonnaise next time I see you.
Somebody said tell a fun story. I feel like we have many fun stories. I have a fun story. It is that marching band camp has started at the school that I live across the street from, and I just every day just hear the metronome for several hours. And I really strongly dislike it. And then I text my friends in marching band, and I'm like, can you guys stop? And then they're like, no, we can't just stop marching band camp. And I was like, you should.
Was that just the screaming that was earlier?
No, that's at the church that is also very near my house. They're also having like a summer camp, and it's outside, and they're just constantly screaming. Like, so much. And I'm just, there's a lot of noise. Anyway, what's your fun story?
I got my blood drawn.
When and why?
Like a few hours
Oh, was
ago.
was it because of that thing that you were doing?
Yeah.
The testing thing?
Mhm.
That's nice. Explain that more.
It's just a study, and then they pay you money.
Nice. Just
Yeah.
for your blood?
Yep.
Nice.
Pretty much.
How much money are you getting paid?
I don't know yet.
They pay you like $1.
I'm like, here. If I'll eat mayonnaise for $2, I'll give some blood.
You'll give some blood for $3.
For $3.
Oh my goodness, Emma. Well, I hope you're doing good. Was it like a lot? Like, do you need like water
No,
or
I'm
anything?
good.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
She did not mention this to me until
I
just
told you
now.
I was at the doctor.
You did tell me that you were at the doctor, but that could be like a checkup. That could be
Oh.
like literally not doing anything. Emma, welcome back. This is part 2 of the prank. I hope you guys have well recovered since then. Just like go get a snack if you haven't, go drink some water, go pet a dog if you have one. If you have a cat, don't pet a cat though, because I'm kidding. Alright, so let's jump in. We're picking up exactly where we left off. So it's still that same night. James has like just pretty much woken up, but he's like still tired and everything. He had the contract explained to him and was signed. And then the Potters show up. Euphemia and Monty. So yeah, they are just they show up, and Effie immediately goes to Sirius and Monty goes to James. But James is like, yo, I'm good, I'm just like tired, you should probably go to Sirius because like he's having a mental breakdown. And so they do, and they hug him and they tell him that everything will be alright, and that's like not what he was expecting really, because he's like, I did almost kill my best friend, so, and also your son. I did almost kill your biological son. So he's like, didn't really expect it, but of course they're great adults, so that's what they do. And he's like, he just tells them everything that happened, and he's like, what am I supposed to do? Remus is literally gonna hate me forever. Like, what am I supposed to do here? He's never gonna speak to me again. I feel like a terrible person. And they're like, okay, well, we're not gonna be like, oh, he won't be mad, because he's probably gonna be really mad, but like, you know, you guys are so close, like it'll work itself out, you know? And they're like, and even if it doesn't for some reason, you'll still have us and James. And it's like a little sweet thing, but also Sirius is like, yeah, but I want Remus. But yeah, so they kind of, you know, are there for a while, and they kind of coach him through what he could say and things like that, and what he shouldn't say and everything like that. He's never really gone through, you know, an apology quite like this before. So they're supportive parents there. But yeah, then Minerva is like, hey, I know it's like literally like 5 or 6 a.m. at this point, but do y'all want breakfast in the kitchen? Just like, because I don't know, you guys should probably be hungry at this point. And so James goes.
It's not like they want to just go to the Great Hall. And
no. So James goes with his parents, but Peter's like, I'm going to sleep, and Sirius is like, I'm just chilling here. So, you know, it just ends up being James and his parents that go. So at breakfast with the Potters, James and his parents have a little chit chat, you know? They talk about the fact that, like, they're like, okay, James, so it turns out you and your friends have gone a little bit too far. He's like, you think?
He's like, really?
He's like, I had no idea. But they were like, no, we were already gonna like try and talk to you about this, because like you literally got your wands taken away at magic school.
About that.
I know, like it's been a while. Of course, they've been given back their wands at this point, because McGonagall is like, look at what you did without wands. Like, what is the point at this point?
Jeez.
But no, they're like, we were already gonna like need to give you a wake up call, because like, what is happening here, dude? Like, it's a lot. And they're like, you know, Sirius has all of his issues and everything like that, but they're like, but you need to like kind of try and keep it together a little bit. Like, you know, they're not trying to put any pressure on him or anything, but they're like, come on, we know you can do better than this kind of thing. And you know, their style of parenting is usually just like, you know, let's just let him be and everything, but they can't do that anymore. So they
But yeah,
kind of
like I feel
tell
like
him.
most like parents
Mhm.
would be like, okay, like this isn't.
Yeah, this is not like okay here.
Yeah.
But they're like, you know, they're like, obviously this is what can happen. You know, people can get really seriously hurt. This is like not just fun stuff. This is literally magic, and it's like really dangerous and everything like that. But they tell him that he just needs to watch himself and not get into like really bad trouble anymore, and everything. And James is like, yeah, like I know. But he also, you know, kind of tells him, he's like, this feels like the only thing I can do at this point, because like then he tells him what happened to Mary and everything, and he's like, what am I? They're so horrible to everybody else, and it just feels like all I can do is just be horrible to them, you know. And so they kind of have, you know, that whole chat, and his parents are like, okay, but like this is not the way to go about it, is to do things that would like get your friends killed. And he's like, well, yeah, I know that, but you know, it's
He's
just
like, I wasn't planning on doing this again.
Yeah,
So.
but yeah, but the big thing is his dad is like, okay, but James, you're not in the war yet. This is Hogwarts. There are professors here for a reason. It's not your job to be doing this. And James is like, yeah, you're probably right. So James kind of realizes that he's done some wrong things, and he's been kind of a jerk and everything like that. But yeah, that's you know, but that last thing really stuck with him, that like he's like, I'm not in the war yet, so I need to just kind of let this be for now, even though it's not fun. So yeah. All right. Now on to Remus.
Yeah,
So
poor guy.
yeah, he's like just basically, you know, the sun has like basically just risen at this point. So Remus goes and gets taken out of the shack, and he's not doing well, because he, you know, not only was there just not like, you know, the animagi there to like help him not be bad, there was also a human literally bleeding right outside of the thing, so it was a bad night. It was very bad. But yeah, so when Sirius saw like Remus like being taken in and like all bloody and nasty and everything like that, like he was done. Yeah, he like threw up, like not reacting well to that at all. He had never like seen Remus like that messed up before, and he knew it was like all his fault and everything. And then Peter runs and goes and gets James, but the Potters are like, maybe we should just like let them deal with this at this point. And so Pomfrey heals him up as best as she can, but she like can tell that they all want to talk to him, and she's like, okay, we're gonna give you guys some privacy once Remus starts to wake up. And when he does, the first thing he says is like, who did I hurt? Like, something happened last night. I don't remember a lot of it, but like I know that there was somebody there. And James is like, nobody got hurt. And he's like, no, there was definitely somebody there, and they were bleeding. Like, what happened? And it was a human. And James was like, okay, it was me, but I'm fine. Don't worry, I'm all good. And Remus is like, okay, but like, what happened? And then he finally, you know, kind of sits back and takes in the fact that he's very injured. And he's like, what is going on here? Like, this is not how it's usually gone for the past, you know, basically year that he's been here and everything. So, you know, he asks what happened, and they all just kind of look at each other, and then James decides to tell him the story. But James conveniently leaves out most of, like, the beginning of it, and just kind of starts when Snape was, like, going up to the tree and everything, and just tells him that part. But then, you know, after that story is done, Remus is like, okay, but how did Snape even know how to get past the tree? And then it's just, like,
and then
silent,
there's like,
and nobody's saying anything, and then Sirius certainly isn't gonna say anything, and Sirius is looking at James, and James just is like, Sirius told him. And Sirius looks at Remus and he's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. And then Remus is angry Remus.
Yeah.
And he's like, you didn't mean to tell him? He's like, what happened? And Sirius is like, well, he was going on about my family, and it got me really angry, and it just slipped out. And he's like, it just slipped out? You just slipped out and told him how to get into the tunnel? And, you know, Sirius is apologizing, But he's like, stop talking. He's like, I can't do this. And James is like, hold on a second here. He's trying to be the mediator. He's trying to be good person now. And he's like, okay, hold on, Remus. Let's give him a chance to like explain it a little bit better. And Remus is like, no, I'm not gonna let him explain it better. He's like, I don't care if it was an accident. I don't care how it happened. What matters is that now somebody who literally hates me knows my biggest secret. Do you have any idea how that feels? He could ruin my life and everything. And then James is like, no, hold on. I told you about this contract thing. Like, we can't tell anybody about it. And he's like, the contract doesn't do anything after Hogwarts. He can still tell people after Hogwarts. He can still ruin everything. And then just everybody's just like, well, yeah, that's a little awkward. So yeah. Sirius again has just like shut down. He's like, I can't deal with this. And Remus is just like losing his mind and yelling, and I'm not gonna write it. I didn't write any more about him yelling because I didn't want to. But yeah, and so then finally he's done and it's quiet for a little bit. But then, you know, Sirius is like literally crying because this is traumatizing and he's had, you know...
He's had a rough time.
Yeah, he's had a rough time. And also he doesn't do well with yelling because of like his family and everything like that. And so then, you know, Remus realizes that and remembers that and kind of comes back to himself. And he apologizes for yelling, but he's like, I'm not apologizing for anything that I said. Like, I'm still angry. And Sirius just like nods and is like, yep, makes sense.
Jeez, wow.
But yeah, so then Remus is like, can you all just like leave and let Pomfrey come and like fix me up better because I'm in so much pain. And they're like, okay, and then they do. And I feel like we need another breather here. Are you good? A little check-in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a lot to take in.
I know, it's a lot to take in, I know. Okay. Oh, now I have the hiccups. This is an unfortunate episode to get the literal hiccups in. My gosh. Okay. We're just gonna power through it. It's gonna be fine. Hopefully they don't get bad, and that's that.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Anyway, after they leave the room, James tells Sirius, he's like, it's okay, like, he'll be fine, like, he'll come around, don't worry, you'll see. And Sirius is like, is he? I just ruined his entire life after Hogwarts. Like, what am I? This isn't like a stupid little prank that we pulled. Like, this was me spilling his secret to Snape. And James is like, okay, but like, you didn't mean to do it. And he's like, okay.
I still did it.
He's like, I still did it. He's like, Mooney didn't care about that. Like, this isn't gonna fix anything. But anyway, they decide to go back to the common room, which is filled with people who are like want to hear the story because they just saw all this happen. They saw James almost dead, and now James is just like walking into the common room.
Like, hey.
But yeah, no, so they're like bombarded as soon as they walk in. They want to know everything, but James like quite literally like pushes through them with the help of Marlene. She's also here. She's like,
I love
we need to just... Marlene has no idea what's going on, but she's doing her best, which she's
like, these people are not okay.
Yeah. But yeah, they get upstairs, they get through it, and they decide to just stay up there for like the rest of the day. And Sirius finally falls asleep because he's been awake for like a full 24 hours. Yeah. So
that's a stressful day.
It's a stress. Yeah, it was a stressful night. So yeah. So now let's go into what like the school is thinking at this point. So the school has figured out a good amount because, you know, they know that James and Snape were in there,
yeah.
And then something happened, and then James was not good, but Snape was unscathed. And so for a while they were like, okay, they went and they like attacked each other, and like that was the thing. But then people were like, okay, but like what about the McGonagall thing? As soon as they heard that they were in the tunnel, like McGonagall knew what was up. So like maybe there's something down there. And so then that was another rumor that was going around for a little bit. But then later that same day at lunch, you know, after James kind of woke up from whatever nap or whatever, Snape decides to say something snarky in the Great Hall, and tensions are still way too high for that to be happening. And James tells him, okay, remember who saved whose life, right? And he was just saying it to Snape, so it didn't break the contract, but other people heard it. And so then they were like, oh, so James saved his life, and so then they're like, there's for sure something being hidden in that tunnel, and like,
Snape
it attacked
calm
James.
down a bit.
I know, he really does. But, you know,
jeez.
so they realized that, like, it had attacked James or something, and then, you know, who saved whose life, they're like, oh, Snape was, like, trying to go after it, and James saved his life, and, like, all the girls are like, oh.
They're like, we ship it.
No, they ship it!
Snape.
No! No! I just meant they were crushing on James. I did not mean for this to happen. No! We don't ship it. I can't believe you, Emma. I'm so mad. Okay.
Anyways.
But yeah, everybody keeps on like asking them like what's up, but they can't confirm or deny anything. So they're just like, you know, but they can tell people about the contract. So they were like, you know, if we say anything, like we're all expelled. Like that's kind of the thing. So people kind of shut up about it, but it doesn't mean that they stop talking about it. You know, they like stop asking them about it, but they're still talking about
They're
it.
like, hey, Marlene. And she's like, I don't know.
She's like, I don't know anything, guys. But no, all that she does say, she just knows that Sirius is stressed out, and that's literally all that she knows. Remus chooses to stay in the hospital wings for several more days.
Do people even know he's in there? Or are they just like,
they also know that he's there. I believe I came up with this, but I forgot to write it down. I think Marlene ended up telling people that she also saw Remus because she just thought that she did or something. Somebody claims that they also saw Remus coming out of the tunnel, and so they were like, oh, so it's like a 3-person situation. All 3 of them were down there. But yeah, so they just think that he also got injured, and that's why he's in the hospital wing. But yeah, so he chooses to stay in there for a while, though, because he can't stand anybody at this point. And also, he isn't technically supposed to leave until he's made a decision about whether or not he's signing the paper and what he's going to do about that thing. That's what Dumbledore told him. But yeah, so he's staying there, and, you know, of course, Sirius and James and Peter, like, visit him, but it's, like, really awkward every time they do, and they're just, like...
super tense.
They're like, yeah, it's not fun. But, yeah, because... Remus is still just figuring out how he feels about all this and everything. But the Potters leave the castle after about 2 days, but while they're there, they like, you know, are talking a lot with Sirius and everything, and, you know, they're trying to figure out how they can help him, and, you know, they're just great. And it's like through this whole thing that Sirius realized that he's like, these are my parents, like, for sure. Like, they will always be right by me, and it's just really nice. But
that's one good thing.
I know, it's the one good thing that has come from this, is that, you know, he feels more comfortable with them as, like, being his parents. But anyway, so on the 5th straight day of Remus just being in the hospital wing, Pomfrey is like, hey, you have a guest, and he's like, okay, not another tense thing with James and Peter and Sirius. Like, no, I'm not doing that. He was about to tell her to leave, but then he realizes it's not them. It's Lily.
Oh,
It's been a while. But yeah, so she's like very awkward coming in here because like nobody else has visited him because they know that like something was up and everything. So she feels weird about going, but she's like, hey, Remus. And Pomfrey thinks that they're dating, remember? I forgot about that. And so Pomfrey's like been giving her these looks. She's like, ooh, you're coming to see Remus. And so she's like, hey, I'm just here with your arithmancy homework and like prefect stuff or something. And Pomfrey's like, I'll leave you. She's like, I'll leave you two alone. She like either winks at Remus or like, you know, raises her eyebrows at him or something. Just something. He's very concerned now. He's like, what is this? And Remus is like, yeah, so once she leaves, he's like, Lily, what the heck was that? She's like, yeah, long story. She does think that we are dating. And he's like, her too? Like, what? He's like, what happened here? And she's like, yeah, so she explains the whole thing with, like, Julie when Mary was in the hospital and everything like that. And and talking about that, and, you know, he's like, dang, a lot has happened since the last time we spoke. We should catch up. So they do. They go over everything, and Lily's like, yeah, I've just kind of been chilling in, like, this Muggle library I found. You should check it out sometime. But yeah, it's pretty fun. And then what happens? Oh yeah. So yeah, and then she's like, okay, so Snape did tell me that, like, you all are, like, sworn into secrecy, or, like, that's true, like, you're included in that as well. And he's like, yep, can't tell you anything. And she's like, okay, but, like, you are way more involved than, like, people are seeming to talk about. I mean, like, you've been in here longer than James was. Like, you gotta do something. You gotta have something to do with it, right? And of course he doesn't say anything, and she's like, oh yeah, you can't say anything.
She's like, fun conversation.
She's like, sorry about that. And so then it's just kind of awkward because she's like trying to figure out how to phrase things. She like wants to ask him stuff, but she can't. And then Remus just says, Sirius and I aren't on good terms anymore. And she's like, okay, yeah, notice that. He's been really weird, like really, really weird. Like he seems really, you know, messed up by all of this. And he's like, yeah. He's like, not by all of this. Like, what? We're not talking about that. What do you mean? We're just talking about Sirius. But no, he's like, yeah, Sirius messed up really, really bad. And she's like, oh. And he's like, really, really, really bad. He hurt me a lot. And at this point, Lily's like, okay, are we even talking about, like, what happened at the tunnel? Or are you just, like, ranting about something else at this point? Like, okay. But she's like, cool, but, like, Remus is now off on his own tangent. And Lily's just like, okay. And he's like, but you know what is so stupid? He's like, I still like him, Lily. I still do.
Wow.
And
fun situation.
Yeah, and Remus is like, Sirius is still, like, so upset. I know he feels awful, and he should, because he did something really bad. But, like, all I want to do is just, like, make him feel better and tell him that it's all okay and that it'll be all right. But I shouldn't do that because he hurt me, but he didn't mean to. And I know he didn't mean to, but it still hurt. And he's, like, going on this whole thing. And eventually he's like, what do I do, Lily? And she's like, I have no idea.
I was like, I still don't know what even happened.
Yeah, she's like, I don't even know what happened, but no, she's like, I legitimately don't know. And he's like, okay, and that's the end of that scene. I don't know if that's really the end of that conversation.
I'm glad he's been able to talk to, like, someone.
Yeah, but she still doesn't know what's going on. She's like, this is an interesting conversation that I have no context for.
Like, yeah. Lily walks in, she's like, fun fact, everyone thinks we're dating. Also, what happened?
Literally. But yeah, so she's basically like, I don't know, it's gotta be up to you though, like, it's completely your decision because you could go either way on this and both would be okay. But anyway, so that night, he's still thinking about this, and Sirius shows up to the hospital wing alone. With a bunch of, like, Remus's favorite, like, foods from the kitchens. And he's like, hey, I brought you something. And Remus is like, is this supposed to, like, make up for something? Like, no, it's food. And he's like, no, I just thought you might want some food. And Remus is like, that is true, I do want some food, thank you. But yeah, so they're just sitting, and, you know, Sirius sits on, like, the other end of the bed, like how they do usually when they, like, talk and stuff. Oh, don't worry, I'm fine, it's all good. But yeah, they just kind of are sitting there quietly, just, like, eating whatever food Sirius brought. And then Sirius is like, so, how much longer until you're healed enough to come back to class? And Remus is like, whenever I feel like. I've been healed for, you know, a couple days. I just haven't gone. Sirius is like, cool. Nice. But then Remus is like, but really, I just don't know whether or not I want to sign that contract. And Sirius is like, well, what do you mean? And Remus is like, okay, well, the way I see it, I have two options. I sign it and I stay here and pretend that everything is normal and just hope that Snape doesn't get it into his head to ruin my life at the drop of a hat. Or I could not sign it, tell everybody the truth and just leave Hogwarts altogether before he even gets the chance to. And Sirius is like, what? You're thinking about leaving? And he's like, yeah. He's like, I don't want to be here if everybody knows about that, you know? And I'd rather just tell them and then leave, you know? And have it come from me. But, so that's his reasoning. But Sirius is like, no.
He's like, I don't...
He's like, no. He's like, you are too smart to leave school. Like, you actually try. You actually enjoy school. He's like, I can't do this. And he's like, yeah, well, getting an education is really dumb if nobody will trust you after you leave. And Sirius is like, well, you know that we'd always trust you. And he's like, but yeah, so then Remus eventually is like, okay, what happened that night? Why did you tell him? And Sirius is like, it doesn't matter. You said so yourself. And Remus is like, no, but like, it does matter and I want you to tell me. So he does. Sirius tells him everything, exactly what Snape said. And you know, how he said that his family didn't like him and how he said that Remus specifically didn't like him and how that hurt him more than anything. And how it felt like it was like Snape saying exactly what he was feeling, and he was like, it was so weird and bizarre. And then the only time that Remus spoke during this whole thing was he said, you felt like I hated you? And Sirius was like, about that. He was like, but all that he said is he was like, it's just hard to know what you're thinking sometimes. And then Remus is like, I didn't hate you. I don't hate you. Anyway. But yeah, so Sirius continues, tells him everything, and says over and over again how sorry he is and how it'll never happen again, and just, you know, gives his full apology and everything. And he never wanted to hurt any of his friends, and he's going to do everything he can to make sure that that doesn't happen again. And when he's done, Remus is still just like quiet. He's just not really saying anything, but he nods in like a, you know, thanks for telling me sort of thing, but he's just still like clearly deciding how he wants to do this. And they sit there for a while, and then Pomfrey, who has heard that it's like been quiet for a while, like walks in and she's like, hey, sorry, but it is after hours and Sirius, you need to leave. Sirius is like, okay. But then he turns around like right as he's leaving and he's like, please just don't leave, Remus. Don't leave Hogwarts, please. And then, you know, then he leaves and Remus thinks about everything that night, and he wakes up the next morning, gets dressed, pulls open the drawer that had the contract in it, he signs it, and walks out of the hospital wing. And that's the end of the episode.
Wow. That was a lot.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's not leaving.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, it's canon compliant.
I was still like, I was in suspense.
You know exactly how this ends, and you're like, oh my god, what if he leaves Hogwarts? Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it was a difficult episode to write. Yeah, as I was writing this last night, and then I had to like go to like a activity, like church activity thing with Emma, and I am sitting there, and then my mom texts me like, don't you have to leave? And I'm like on the verge of tears, and I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta go. This is very dramatic. But yeah, those are the vibes. Do we? Yeah. Again, I feel like I did this justice, but I don't know.
I mean, clearly you did it justice because I was in suspense when I already know.
I know,
I don't know why that didn't like cross my mind that I knew how it all ends up.
You're like, I can't get over that. That's so funny. I like when I get to do things like this, like things that are mentioned in the books, but then I get to like say how like I think that happened, and stuff like that. That's why I did this whole thing, is because I like doing stories like this. So kind of fun, kind of funky, kind of fresh. All right, my voice is like dead. Did you notice that? It hurts. The talking does need to stop. My voice legitimately hurts now from talking so much. because I was talking for like 3 hours straight, so that's kind of fun. But yeah, anything else to add, or should I wrap it up?
That was a lot. I don't know.
So yeah, now we have, so since I split this one into 2 episodes, we have 4 more episodes until the end.
Whoa.
Yeah, and the next one, wait, no, not the next one. We'll have 1, and then the one after that, I'm going to announce it will be with Emma's siblings.
We're gonna try to get all the 3 of them on here.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, except I don't know, you have a younger brother that I don't know if he wants to be in it or not, and if so, that'll, you know, he'll just be vibing. But yeah, I definitely have Emma's younger sister and older brother on board, so it'll be exciting.
Yeah.
What if I get your dad?
You would
I'm kidding. I'm not.
honestly
I'm okay. I'm sorry. I'm not doing that.
Wow.
All right. Yeah. So let's finish it up. You know, as always, thank you for watching. Thank you to Malia Black for doing the cover art and Benji Wilson for the music. Really appreciate it. Could not have done that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Bye.